Hello, and welcome back to Comic Book School Live. I'm so glad to see you here tonight. And it is Tuesday, which means we're going to be talking about comic books and making comic books. And you know what? It's always a big thrill when you have a stellar co-host like the one I'm about to announce, and an equally stellar guest. So tonight's one worth sticking around for because this one will dive a little bit more deeply into the business part of the craft and business of making comics. And that's what comic book school is all about. It's about leveling up. If you're already an established or up and coming pro, we help you to level up your skills a little bit. If you are somebody brand new and just looking to get published and getting oriented, we're here for you as well. The whole idea about the comic book school is to give you a resource. Everything is free to get yourself into the comic book business and earning a living. And a little shade of what's going on tonight. We'll be talking about how to earn a living in comic books. My name is Buddy Scalera, and I am your host and the co founder of Comic Book School. And I'm thrilled to be introducing my co host and personal friend of many, many years, an Emmy Award winning television screenwriter, and also a guy that worked with me at Wizard Magazine. Please welcome Mike Fasolo.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah.
One day, Mike, I'll write down notes and know what I'm about to say, but I just
Why bother? That was a good off the cuff
I
opening.
was a good off the cuff. And
Yeah.
actually, people think we're joking. I don't tell you who's
No,
coming on the show, what we're talking about, or anything.
we don't talk all week, and then I get an email saying, "Here's the link, and click it," and then I just come and I click it.
Yeah. So I think that people think that the spontaneity is real veritas, but it's really
Spon-
spontaneity.
Spontaneous.
But for you, because you really don't know what we're going to talk about, do you?
No, no, I don't. It's always an interesting time when I check in.
Yeah. Just stop reading the comments. We'll do that together. We'll go as a
Can you
team.
can you see I was reading the
I can
comments?
see. I see when your eye darts to the side. I can
Oh,
also see
sorry.
when you're not listening. Our engineer, D. Alley, also knows, and she will send a small electric shock to your gaming chair.
Uh, hmm.
So,
Well,
Mike, you are as I noted, you're an Emmy Award winning screenwriter, more than one Emmy, right?
yes, I have three, and one
That's
day I
like
will put them in the background just to show them off.
that's like the hat trick of Emmys. Am I right? Were they all won on the same day?
No, they were one many years apart.
Many years apart. For what? You work on a little TV show people might know?
Worked on a small TV show called Robot Chicken. Uh, most
Oh,
people
look.
probably haven't heard of it. Yeah, it's
Was
a
that
little.
breakfast with Emmys?
That was Breakfast with Emmys. Yes, I started doing that after the first one as a joke, and then when the Emmys just kept coming, I figured I might as well continue it. So
Being a comedy funny,
somewhat comedic,
somewhat. You
yes.
get paid for that. We met at Wizard Magazine, and there is a resurgent interest these days, I believe, in Wizard. Have you noticed that?
Yes, that I can't remember the name of their site or whatever it is, but yeah, these guys have pulled Wizard out of the uh, the past, and now they've been talking to you and me and a few of the other writers and editors and all that, and it's making a comeback,
It
sort
is
of.
making a comeback, and I made you come back as well. So we,
Yes,
we met
thank
working
you.
on Wizard and Wizard Online, and we've done some wonderful shows where we talk about Wizard, but we'll be doing more. But tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about something that neither of us know anything about, which is,
Life.
yeah, I mean, well, I just think it's good to have an opinion on things that you don't know anything about because feel like that's the American way.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
lot of opinions on things I don't know anything
Yeah,
about.
I'm going to get a half bit of information from the news and then formulate an opinion on social media because what could possibly go wrong with that? So, without any further ado, is that like a Shakespearean thing, Mike? Further ado,
Further ado, I believe it is Shakespeare, but
is
again,
it?
I don't know anything about it, so I'm just making it up.
That's right. All right. Well, I am going to read the bio of my next guest, and then we'll ask our engineer to pop our guest into the chat. He's quite accomplished. Gamal Hennessy is an experienced commercial contracts attorney with expertise in publishing and IP licensing. That's intellectual property, Mike.
Ooh.
During his career, he's represented major corporate clients, including Aftershock, Amazon, Marvel, and Viacom, as well as independent creative professionals and startup companies. In 2020, he published a book called The Business of Independent Comic Book Publishing as a comprehensive guide to the business and legal aspect of the independent comic book industry. He's currently working on the follow up book, The Business of Freelance Comic Book Publishing, which is scheduled for publication the fall of 2020. Please welcome our guest, Gamal Hennessy.
Good
Yay!
evening, gentlemen. How you
Hey,
doing?
Hello,
How you
hello.
doing?
welcome, welcome.
Buddy, just so you know, the book won't come out in 2020, which is what you just said. It will come out probably the spring of 2023.
All
Yeah.
right, so I made up a lie about a lawyer, and
You took a
Yeah.
little bit of information and then
Mhm.
added your own.
The
Mike
lawsuit
Lo-
is in the mail, but don't worry. The lawsuit is already in the
sending
mail.
me a cease and desist as
It's
we
already
speak.
happened. Yeah.
Now, Gamal, where are you dialing in from? Is it nice and warm and sunny where you are?
No, it is. We're in New York City. It is like 42 degrees. It is not, it's neither warm nor sunny, and it won't be any of those things for another 4 or 5 months now.
Hmm.
I
We're
remember
in,
those days. Not
yeah,
fun.
not fun at all. Not fun
Well,
at all.
let's just stay on the line the whole time until the winter's open. One long telethon. What do you guys think?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Sure. Are we generating money for something? Are we
Just
Oh,
something to do.
that's Gamal's always interested in how people earn money and earn a living, which I
Yeah,
just
I
think
mean,
is why bother?
Yeah.
internet connections cost money, gentlemen. We can't just stay on the line without somebody making some money.
It's not
You know,
just
Gamal,
free.
we worked at Wizard together, and that was a little bit like taking a vow of poverty, wasn't it, Mike?
Yes. Yes. We weren't paid well
We
at
weren't
all.
paid well. Sometimes, but we were paid in swag, right? Like we were paid in free stuff.
There were lots of free things, which most of them were useless, but there were a couple that were a lot of fun.
Now, did you turn around and sell the free things to
Oh
actually
yeah,
make some extra
Oh
money?
yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there
Many
you
years
go.
later, yes.
There you
I
go.
I
I
still
just
have some things to
I
say.
do too. I have a cachet of stuff. Come on, Gamal, tell me you don't have stuff from the Marvel days that you're like, hey, this is going up in price.
Though I will tell you, gentlemen, a story which is not my proudest moment. When I was in Marvel, when I was the international publishing manager, everybody, of course, had all this swag in their office, and I had this full-sized, beautiful World War II replica Captain America shield, right? Now, when I left Marvel and I took I took a lot of graphic novels. I remember doing that. But the shield seemed like a big thing to walk out the door with. So I didn't leave with the shield. A couple years later, I saw Joe Quesada go on the Tonight Show with Stephen Colbert
Oh no.
with my shield. And he handed it to Steve. And
Oh,
now if you look and you watch the Tonight Show, every once in a while they'll pan out and you'll see that shield. And I always die a little bit inside every time I see Stephen Colbert. Like he needs my shield, right? No, he
no,
doesn't. He's got a
no.
lot of stuff. Like he doesn't need my shield. But
That's what you get for having ethics
Yep.
and
Yep.
not stealing.
Instead of walking out the door, that you should have like dropped it out the window and picked it
Yeah,
up in the bushes on the way out.
I admire your ethics, Gamal. And you know why? Because you know what it would be like to have to testify that you stole Captain America's shield.
I also know what it would be like to have that shield right
Yeah.
here on the wall.
Yeah.
Hanging in the background.
That
Yep.
shield would actually be amazing.
So Gamal, you actually are. By the way, the audience is very busy, and somebody did confirm that Much Ado About Nothing is perhaps the origin of the word. So there you go, mystery solved. Thank you, Rob Anderson. So Gamal, you actually are a real lawyer. Like you did the homework, you studied, you took the test, and you passed.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but give us your secret origin story. Were you like secretly reading comics while you were supposed to be reading about, something v something?
That is literally how I became a comic book attorney. Because when I was in law school, I was probably reading more comics than I was reading law books. And most of the people that I was in law school with knew that. So when a friend of mine, when we were graduating in your third year, she got offered a job to be general counsel for a manga company in New York City. But she didn't want the job because she had a better job. But she said, I know somebody who would read manga all day long, probably good for this job. So I saw her one day. She said, go to this place, talk to this guy. He's going to give you a job. I didn't have a resume because I was in law school. I didn't really know anything because I was in law school. I showed up, and 4 months later, I was general counsel of Central Park Media. And I did that for about 4 years. We were mostly this was late 90s. So we were actually pulling a lot of television shows and movies from Japan, dubbing them, subbing them into English, distributing them US and Europe. And then, let's see, 2001, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man era, Marvel decided they wanted to get back into the Japanese market, which was much harder for them to do relative to like Europe or South America or anything else. So they needed somebody who knew how to negotiate with Japanese companies. So a person who was at Marvel, who used to be with me at CPM, called me up one day and said, go to this place, talk to this guy. He's going to give you a job. I didn't.
So when you describe it like that, it sounds shady.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of going to meet this guy and
talk to this. Go to I didn't say anything about a dark alley. I didn't say anything about a briefcase full of money. I didn't say any of those things.
The password is pork fried rice.
Exactly. Go to this place. Talk to this guy. He's going to give you a job. And then I became the international publishing manager for Marvel, and I was there for about 2 years doing licensing Marvel stuff out into other territories, also handling a lot of the product licensing that was going on when Marvel movies were just starting to ramp up, like Ang Lee's Hulk and the Jessica Alba Fantastic Four and all of those, Academy Award winning films, right? And I also did quite a few of the freelance deals for our creators, writers, artists come in, and you got to give them a contract before they start working on whatever book they're going to work on. And that's when the light bulb went off, because someone would come to me and say, okay, we want this guy to be an artist. I'd give him the contract. I'd say, okay, take that to your lawyer. Let me know what they think, and we'll talk about whatever notes they have. But I knew that person didn't have a lawyer, and that person knew he didn't have a lawyer. And we both knew he was going to sign whatever I put in front of him because he wasn't even going to read it, because at that point I was Marvel and he wasn't. And that's how a lot of people came through the door. So when I left Marvel, one of the first things I did was set up a company that was basically all I was trying to do was explain to people what it was they were signing and what it was they were giving up and what it was that they were going to get. So at least they would go into it with open eyes, because they didn't have very much leverage, because they were still, one side was still Marvel, one side was still, I'm trying to get my first deal, or I'm trying to negotiate a renewal or something like that. So a lot of it in the beginning was just education from a legal standpoint. But as the industry changed and technology gave people the ability to make their own books, handle their own distribution, do their own marketing, there was a greater need for people to negotiate contracts, because you're talking about different levels of publisher. You're talking about people publishing independently. You're talking about people setting up their own companies. So the practice grew fairly organically, until I realized that I was sending out people into the world extremely unprepared, because they had their contracts done. The legal side was already set up, but they didn't understand finance or marketing or distribution channels or production schedules or profit and loss statements or any of these other things that you need to actually go out into the world and have a successful business model. So in 2016, I was planning on writing a book that was going to have 4 parts. The first part was going to be about independent comic book publishing. The second part was going to be about freelance comic book publishing. The third part was going to be about creator-owned deals. And the fourth part was going to be about comic book licensing. And I talked to one of the executives at Valiant, who I knew from my days at Marvel, and he said, that is the dumbest idea you could have ever come up with. because you're talking about writing a book that's going to be at least 2,000 pages. It's going to take you 12 years to write this book. And by the time you're finished writing it, 3 people are going to read it. So what you need to do is go back a step. Write 1 book about independent comic book publishing.
Hmm.
When that's done, write another one about freelance, then creator owned, then licensing. You can even do a book about investing in the comic book industry itself. And every book will probably be a little bit smaller because you'll be building off the first one, the earlier book in your series. And then, like any good limited series, you could sell the whole package together later, but let people digest each one at the same time because it'll be easier for you to write, easier for them to read, and cheaper for everyone to buy. Now, that individual, kind of a genius, because the first book that I wrote,
And
which
I'm going to
came,
pull it up here. It's behind us, but there you go. Look, it's blocking the guest, which is a great layout. I can't move. I don't know how to justify left or
you
right.
can hit the button with the thing and
This
move
is
everybody.
that's the thing. But that is the cover of the book, Gamal.
yes, that book came out last year. Because of COVID, we weren't able to do a traditional book launch, so I launched it on Kickstarter, but the launch went very well. I think we got 600% over our funding goal. So, and that, led to me getting a literary agent and trying to get the book out into like universities and things like that. And I've moved on to writing the next book, but I also started a school, and the school is called the Comics Publishing Institute. And the
Oh.
goal of the school is to actually help people understand on an ongoing basis, because the problem with writing a book or writing any book is that as soon as you finish it and as soon as you send it to the printer, the book is old because something in the industry has changed. Something has shifted in the economics, shifted in the social fabric. So the book is a good foundation, but it's only the beginning. So the Comics Publishing Institute is a way for me to actually continue that interaction with people who want to build business models in comics by offering in-depth lessons on a monthly basis of different aspects of the business, bringing in experts to talk about what they specialize in from the standpoint of comics. And we also have question and answer sessions that people can jump in every week to ask whatever question they want about the comics they're working on or things that are happening in the industry. And we record everything so that there's an archive of information that people are going to be able to go to on an ongoing basis to find out anything they want to know about making their comics or building a business for their comics, all in one spot. So
Genius.
Great. Yeah, Gamal, yeah, we have a sister law school, so our schools are associated. Gamal, I think this is great. Your name is well known within the business side. I think everybody knows who you are, and I think that it's great that you're starting to help people to understand that they need to understand what they're signing. I signed the Marvel contracts as a Marvel
Mhm,
writer, and then I signed them again,
mhm,
right? Because
mhm.
then they came back and they were like, "Here's a more prohibitive contract that will give you even less money." And I was like, "Oh, all right, sure." But
Yes.
I wanted my check for $2.39, which I got, and signed away all ownership of any comic characters that I created during
Mhm.
my time writing at Marvel. But it's Marvel. You're like, whatever, you sign it. But indie's different though, Gamal. Why would indie creators want to think about the legalities of what they're signing before they get started, even if they're just kickstarting with co-creators?
Well, because we're in a situation now. I mean, we've always been in this situation. It's just more prevalent now that comic book properties are the kind of properties that cross over more easy than any other type of narrative art property. So the idea that, like, let's be honest, there's a lot of Spawn merchandise out there in the world. There's not a lot of, I don't know, Captain Ahab merchandise floating around, even though Captain Ahab is an older
Been
character
around longer.
and tied to arguably a more famous literary work. But, you know, Spawn's got more merch.
I thought
Spawn's
you were going
got
to put a
film.
picture of Captain Ahab.
Yeah, I didn't know it was coming up either. Stuff just comes up.
It would be weird if he actually all of a sudden just had a picture of Captain Ahab up there, because that would undercut
You know
my
what?
whole
When
argument.
Rob is engineering with DL, you never know what you're going to get. So anyway, Gamal. So, but why would it be important for creators who are doing just a Kickstarter between friends
Mhm.
to want to think about legalities and contracts? Why would that be important?
Because there is no way for us to know when a comic book comes out. See, here we go.
Yeah.
There's no way for us to know when a comic book comes out which book is going to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
There's no way to actually understand 25 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, what property is going to resonate to be worth $1 billion. I mean, when I first saw, and I was 12 years old when I think I saw this, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I had ever seen. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has been a household name for generations now, and the amount of revenue that property has come out with is monumental. I mean, the idea that Siegel and Schuster signed away Superman rights for what back then might have been $130,000 adjusted income for one of the most recognizable intellectual properties that has ever been created.
Mike, you would have sold your kidney for $120,000.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
less than that, maybe just
don't-
$100.
You don't think big like Gamal. You don't realize.
Well, this is the difference between Siegel and Schuster and Bob Kane. Because when Bob Kane came in to do the Batman deal, he had a lawyer. Siegel and Schuster signed away their deal. They had no lawyer. Bob Kane got an infinitely better deal. If that is not archetypal, I do not know what is.
So somebody's about to do a Kickstarter, somebody maybe named Buddy Scalera, who probably should know better. What might a person hypothetically named Buddy Scalera, who should know better, start off with?
Well, you have to actually first understand the long-term goal of the project. And then you need to understand the nature of the relationship between you and the other individuals who are in this project with you. So you could have, theoretically, you could have a collaborator, someone who's going to own a piece of this intellectual property with you when the book comes out. Alternatively, you could have a work for hire situation where you have a person who is going to get some money up front, but not actually own any of the intellectual property. Now, depending on how many people are involved in the creation of the book and what their relationship is, you're going to need a contract for each one of them. You're also going to need to be thinking about what your distribution is going to be after the Kickstarter actually goes through, whether it's successful or not, because you're going to have a potential revenue stream that if you don't actually take care of it, you have squandered an opportunity. If you're doing a collaboration agreement, you have to actually be very clear about what's going on in relationship to the Kickstarter itself. So who's actually going to be setting up the Kickstarter? Who's going to decide when the Kickstarter is going to start? Who's going to decide what platform it's on? Who's going to decide what the backer rewards are going to be? Who's going to be underwriting the financing of those backer rewards? Because the thing about Kickstarter that a lot of people who are just getting into it don't understand is there's a certain amount of upfront money that has to be put in to get to a place where you can launch a Kickstarter. Unless you're Keanu Reeves, you can't go on the Kickstarter and say, I'm going to have a comic, give me some money. You have to actually have some art. You have to have character designs. A certain percentage of the book has to already be made, and those pages are going to cost money. So you have to figure out who's putting the money in up front. How are those people going to get their money back, if they're going to get that money back when the money comes in? What happens if the project is unsuccessful? What happens if the project is successful? Where does the actual you can't call it profit because crowdfunding technically is not a store. But where does the actual funding go once you actually get it? Whose job is it to do the fulfillment? Whose job is it to create the back rewards? All these things need to be in writing in the contract, because crowdfunding is a labor intensive and sometimes financially intense endeavor. If you just kind of jump into it and say, we'll figure it out on the way, you will guarantee, well, not guaranteed, because you still could, in some sense, get a successful Kickstarter. It's much better if you lay it all out on the table before you get started, so you know where you're going to go and what's going
Mike,
to happen.
at what point when Gamal was explaining this, did you stop listening and think, can someone else do this for me?
Yeah, exactly. As soon as he said you have to have a plan, no, that's too much. Way too much.
Because I was like, this sounds like a lot of work that someone else could do. So Gamal, now I know why people pay you.
I will say, having run a Kickstarter, there is a significant cottage industry of companies willing to actually handle a lot of the steps that I actually just laid out, as long as you're willing to give each one of them a cut of what happens with the crowdfunding, or pay them up front, whether you reach your funding goal or not. And then you don't have to do anything. You can just, as long as you're willing to write the checks, that's the only something that needs to get done.
Checks I can do. Planning, that's
yeah,
not
planning sounds like a lot of work. Also, Gamal, can you write a contract where I screw over my coworkers and creators? Is that something you can bake in?
Theoretically, I'm not going to actually confirm or deny that I could actually put that in a contract, but theoretically, that is possible. Yes.
But a finer point on it, to screw over Mike Fasolo, is there anything that we can do for that?
I mean, if he's willing to sign it,
he's an idiot. He'll sign anything.
You should put it up on Kickstarter, and I'll just support it.
Yeah. So Gamal, I it's funny. There are so many different topics that I wanted to cover, but one of the things that we were talking about prior to us coming on, and incidentally, I had to ask Mike to cut out the lawyer jokes just before we started, because it was getting a little grim. So I just want you to know I did that for you.
I appreciate that. Although, if I've been a lawyer long enough that, if I haven't heard it, it's probably going to be a good one, because I've heard most of them.
You probably know all the good ones, but
yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned something about making money, and comic book school is not just about the craft where you get better at how you make comics, but it's also about thinking about comic books as a living. And we talk about this all the time, about professionalism and follow up. But you've been thinking about it from a different perspective. You've actually applied some numbers in your mind and some targets. Do you want to just talk a little bit about what the concept of a living wage is, and how comic creators should be thinking about it?
Yeah, one of the things that has, there's always quite a few articles about this, is that, and it became more prevalent during the pandemic, that people making comics were struggling to actually find out how to make a living purely from doing comics, without either having a spouse who actually made more money, had health care, and could do other things to underwrite this comic book career, or be the prototypical starving artist. Well, how would you not do, if you didn't have either one of those options? How could you actually make money in comics? And because comics is a very broad field, so you have to actually think about the different aspects of comics in terms of what it is you're going to do to be making a living. So in terms of, and when I say making a living, because it's different for everyone, I use an arbitrary number, which is basically the average household income in the United States, which is hovering around, call it $70,000, right? So if let's say you're a freelance comic book creator, freelance comic creators mostly get paid by their page rate.
Right.
So how many pages do you have to do at whatever rate that you can charge to actually get to that $70,000? And understanding that if you're a freelancer, you're not actually creating pages every day. You have to spend about a third of your time looking for work. You have to spend a third of your time trying to actually figure out how you're going to get paid in your work, negotiating the contracts, doing all this other stuff. Only 1/3 of your time is actually left to make the pages that you need to actually make a living. So if you're trying to actually figure out how many hours and how many pages you have to get to make that $70,000, it becomes extremely difficult to reach that number, just because you can only produce so many pages per day.
Right.
Even if you're a writer or a letterer, you can only actually get out the door a certain number of pages per day. And the number that you can charge that gets you to that magical 70,000 is undercut by the idea that comic books themselves are a geographically dispersed medium, which means it's unlike if you are making a play on Broadway. All of your actors and everyone involved in the play have to go into one place, which means they have to live in a similar area, which means they have to kind of negotiate that living. But with comics, you can have your artist is in Indonesia and your writer is in Ireland and your letterer is out in LA. Each one of them has a different cost of living. So if I'm an artist in New York and I'm living in like Brooklyn and I have to pay like $3,000 a month for rent, but there's someone in Jakarta who's actually a better artist than me and is only paying like 200 US in rent, he can charge a lot less per page. And he can get to his magic number a lot faster than I can. And from the publisher's standpoint, my art and the Jakarta artist's art is just as good. So why would they pay me? So freelancing, you have to actually there's a lot of different things that you're going to have to do, especially when you understand that you don't own the underlying intellectual property. So you can't leverage that into more income. Now, if you're in an independent comic book publisher, you could, because advertising based revenue from comics, especially digital comics, is growing exponentially. When you're looking at Webtoon, Tapas, Kakao, the people who are Webtoon is actually generating more money in a year than the entire traditional direct market is generating in a year. They're both generating about $1.2 billion. So you have one platform making about 1.2 billion, and then you have 300 companies, which includes Marvel, DC, Valiant, Image. They're making about 1.2 billion dollars. And because the revenue from Webtoon is ad based, people are actually just consuming content for free. And in a way that's similar to YouTube, you have people, based on the numbers that there was a recent Forbes article about this, there are people making, $125,000 a year on Webtoons. They have no print distribution model. They have no aftermarket. They're just making Webtoons. Now that's gonna be the top 10%. But remember, the magic number we were talking about before is 70. So if some of them are making 125, and some of them are literally making millions, but we're not talking about those people right now, because that
got Mike's attention, huh?
Hey, I like millions.
Yeah.
See,
I like billions better.
Yeah, but you deal with the
I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody on Webtoons making billions of dollars. I don't think that's a thing. But again, if you start out with IP that you own, again, this goes back to the contract. If you own the IP and you can put it on Webtoons and generate a following, because Webtoons is for people to read it is free. You generate a following who are now looking at ads and you're getting money from the ads. That following could then be used as your foundation for your Kickstarter campaign. Once you decide, you take 2 or 3 years worth of your material that you've been putting on Webtoons, the material's already there. You repurpose it for a print edition. Now you get an extra bump in income coming in from that. And then if you have a post-campaign distribution model, whether you're using Ingram, whether you're putting it on your own website, whether you're using Diamond, you now have 3 sources of revenue from one comic that you can actually get you a lot closer to that magic number of $70,000 once the machine is running, once you actually get to the point where you have content coming out on a regular basis that could actually feed the machine.
Yeah, and you know what, Kamal, I think consistency is important, and
Hmm.
also treating this like a business. I read a couple of articles how comic creators you can't earn a living wage, but I say it is a challenging business. It's a beautiful, wonderful business that brings so much joy to the people who work in it. But you do have to treat it like a real job.
Hmm.
You know, you
Hmm.
have to I hate the word hustle because it has this negative connotation, but you're going to have to think about different sources of income. You're going to have to think proactively about where your money is coming from as a freelancer, right, Mike? Freelance work is never easy. You're always scrambling. Am I right?
Yeah, you always
Even out in
gotta
Hollywood.
go out there and find what you're looking for.
Like
And sometimes
exactly.
you find the stuff you don't want, but you do it anyway just because it brings in a nice check.
Exactly. I
That's
mean,
right.
and this isn't, and I think a lot of people, when we talk about it in terms of making a living wage in comics, where we don't really look at the big picture. Because if we had a podcast that was about musicians instead of comics, we would be having the same conversation about how
Yes.
hard it is to make a living wage as a musician. Take that out and put in actors, we would be having the same conversation. I mean, in New York City, like 80-90% of every bar, of all the bartenders, waiters, and everybody else, those people are actually actors and screenwriters. They're not
Mhm.
waiters, they're musicians. But that's how they're making a living. So this is more a issue about how creative people in general have to struggle to make a living, but it is particularly acute in comics where very only the very, very top of people in traditional print comics are, making a living. There was a list of like the most of the millionaires in comics, and the people that were on this list were like Jim Lee, Joe Quesada, Todd McFarlane, um, and four other names that you absolutely knew, but they've been around since the '90s, and they are, at this point, this generation's icons. So okay, they're millionaires. That's great. Um, I'm not. So what's going on?
True or false, Mike? When you get paid from Robot Chicken, you need to fill up the trunk of the car and wheel it out with a wheelbarrow, right? That's how much money.
Actually, it's two wheelbarrows.
Two wheelbarrows.
Yeah.
Gamal, thank you for covering this. I saw a couple people commenting in the chat. Where can they find your book or a book or any books at all?
Well, any books you can find on Amazon. But at this point, I am still negotiating the print deal with my publisher to get this book, because this book was a Kickstarter exclusive. But we're trying to negotiate a deal to get that book out hopefully in 2022. However, if you join the Comics Publishing Institute, the one of the first things you get as a member is you get a digital copy of the book,
Very
because
nice.
quite a few of the concepts that we talk about, I go into much more detail in the book itself. So I wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of it, so they can refer back to. The other thing that you get when you join CPI is you get a discount on both the legal services that I provide, if you actually need those later on, and you get a discount on the future books that I do as a member of CPI.
And true or false? There's a raffle for the Captain America shield. Is that true?
If you can get it out of Colbert's studio, sure.
Mm,
I
all
mean,
right. Well,
You got to
there.
talk to some guy and go down a dark
yeah,
alley
you got
and
to, yeah. Go to a place,
talk to a
talk to
guy.
a guy. He'll
So
get you
Gamal,
Captain America's shield.
you know what? Thank you so much for joining us. You have provided an amazing amount of information and shared generously of your knowledge. Where can people find you?
Mhm, mhm.
And we've already shown your website, but where can they find you
Yep.
coming up?
If you just type in Gamal Hennessy into any social media platform, I mean, not Patreon. I'm not on Patreon, but Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. There's not much happening on Instagram, so I wouldn't even bother doing that. You can find me on creativecontractconsulting.com. If you actually have questions, or you need a free legal consultation for things that you're working on in comics or in intellectual property licensing, you can go to my website, you sign up for a free consultation, and we set you up for a half an hour. We can discuss the things that you're working on in your comic book career and how to get you to where you need to be.
That sounds great. Do you have an OnlyFans or anything, Gamal? Anything good, fun like that?
Nope, because I'm not shaving my legs.
No. All right. Well, you know what? With that in mind, Gamal, we're going to ask you. But oh wait, well, you know what we'll do now? We're going to do check it out and see. Gamal, do you have a check it out?
Do I have a check it out? Yes, I actually do.
All right, we're
Hold
going
on.
to go first with Mike Fasolo. That'll give you a minute to warm up.
Yeah.
Mike Fasolo. Let's run the graphic. Do we have a graphic for this? I think we have a graphic for this. Oh gosh, what happened? Did they kill my? I think they deleted my graphic.
Yeah,
I had an
D said,
office.
no, we're not using this anymore.
Yeah, she died inside a little bit every time. Okay, so Mike, you go first. What's your check it out for this
My
month?
check it out is something that is old and is not just a comic, but is now a TV show.
Oh my goodness.
Invincible.
Mm-hmm.
Not only a good comic, but a good TV show, because they took the characters, they followed the story, and they made it awesome. It's about if anybody hasn't seen it, they should check it out on. Is it on Hulu? I think
It is on Amazon.
Amazon.
It's on
That's what I
Amazon,
meant.
Yeah. So yes, I've read that. Oh, there's our graphic. There's our check this out graphic. The graphic that makes people die inside. My check it out is, interestingly enough, a stack of comics. Mike, ask me why this stack of comics is impressive.
Buddy, why is that stack of comics impressive?
Because my local library now stocks monthly floppies on the comic book shelves.
Really?
Courtesy of my local comic shop. They shelve indie comics, they shelve mainstream comics, and most of the libraries have trade paperbacks and graphic novels. But as a cooperative program with the local library, they put a few issues out there and help people discover comic books from the local library. And that is my check it out for this week.
Do they have the old spinner rack?
No, they don't have a spinner rack, but I will tell you that I do have two check it outs for tonight. But I'll let Gamal go because I know that he's working hard there in the background.
No. I found it. This is actually the check it out is going to be an example of that that evolution that I talked about making a living. It's called The Strange Planet. This is a collection of web comics that has actually been, who printed this? Morrow Gift. So Strange Planet is basically a web comic about a group of aliens attempting to actually just figure out life in America. And the art is actually very simple, but the concept and the stories, they're actually only like 4 panels, but very poignant, very insightful, very funny, and started out as a web comic, got printed. So now you have those multiple revenue streams, exactly like I was talking about before. See,
I like that, Gamal. And one last check it out. It is not a traditional check it out where you'd want to go out and buy it, but I will announce that I hate to say, we mark the passing of Stan Lee 4 days ago. He's gone 3 years. So we miss Stan for being really the grandfather of Marvel Comics and a guy that was a fixture and in the Marvel movies. We will miss him greatly. But yeah, Stan is gone now 3 years, Mike.
Excelsior.
So Gamal, thank you for joining us. We're going to have you hang out in the green room real quick.
Yes, sir.
And
snacks. I'm
yeah,
waiting.
don't go
snacks.
away. There's cookies back there, and
Sure,
we'll come back and we'll do our wrap. So thank you, Gamal.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Had a
Thank
good
you.
time.
So Mike,
Yes.
we had an awesome guest. That was
Yes, we did. That was
I legitimately learned that I shouldn't have signed that contract.
Yeah, that is a lot, because I sign a lot of contracts and I do exactly what he says not to do. They get the contract and I just, it sounds good.
Sounds good.
I don't really read it. I mean, I read how much, they're willing to pay, but that's about it. 16 pages. I go to the last one and I sign it, and that's it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us do that, and it is a cautionary tale. When you hold up something like Invincible, you have to hope that all those contracts are in the right
Yeah.
place. And so, Gamal's a stand-up guy, well known in the industry. I'm glad he was able to join us, and I hope people check out his institute. I think that it's a valuable resource that I wish was available when I was starting out. So,
Yeah.
a
Very
couple more
helpful.
things to cover. Mike, I want to announce that A.A. Rubin, one of the editors on the Comic Book School, is featured right there. His name is circled on the cover of Black's Myth from Ahoy Comics. He contributed a flash fiction to them. Ahoy Comics appeared in a couple of our episodes, talked about what their submission process were and how to get published by them. And A.A. Rubin went ahead, followed all the steps, and will be appearing in Black's Myth #5. It's in the catalog. You can go and order it or go to your local comic shop and pick up a copy and support A.A. Rubin. But congratulations to our very own A.A. Rubin.
Well done, AA.
Well done. Now, Mike, I want this to feel more educational.
Uh-oh.
I forgot to change the graphics, so it's not actually the language of comics, but this is our CBS live educational moment where I don't prep you and then I give you something that you have to guess
Wolverine.
and say pretty close, actually. Um, I found this study, the value of visuals, and they had this idea: show me and I remember. And it said, what percentage of employees are better at completing tasks when information includes text and images with markup or video than by text alone? So just looking at text or looking at text with an image, what percentage said that they remember the images better and learn better with images?
Text with image, I would say 80%.
I would say you're pretty close. I think the actual number is 67% of employees say they learn better with images and visuals.
Yes, of
And,
course.
and I think what's important is that a lot of what we learn as comic book creators is how to communicate with images. And these are skills that you can utilize while you're doing your day job. I don't know what percentages, wait tables, but I do know that a percentage of comic book creators work in offices hoping to, work their way up, get their health benefits, and being able to communicate in visuals and in pictures is a valuable skill. So don't hide your comic book background. Bring it to your workplace.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I know, especially just for myself, I would rather see pictures and words rather than just reading text on a page because that gets boring after a while.
It does, and as we as comic book creators are bringing our skills along, bring that whole self to the workplace, because you will help your coworkers to learn more effectively and more efficiently. Some a little bit of a statistic there, if you want to bring that into the workplace and advise your boss why their PowerPoint slides need to look better. That's yours to do. So that's a wrap on this show. Mike, where can they find you on social media and different
Oh,
places?
yeah. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Mike Fasolo 1987. I'm rarely on these days, but every now and then I check in and post something stupid.
Do you have an OnlyFans, Mike? Because
Uh, Not under my name.
not, I don't mean what are you paying for on your credit card. I mean what are you appearing in? Um, so my name is Buddy Scalera, and I thank all of you. Mike, I'll see you in the green room. We'll pull Mike off the screen. I think I hold on. Don't do it. Let me. Hold on. Let me do it myself.
I wanted to
Let
do
me do-
it.
I want to do it. Mike, I'm about to remove you. See you
Okay.
later, Mike.
Bye.
Bye. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and thanks for all the comments in the chat. I think we all learned a little bit today that we should probably be consulting with a lawyer, particularly as we move towards Kickstarter. We've talked about Kickstarter a lot. I'll be running a Kickstarter soon, and you may be as well. Also, make sure that you talk to somebody who knows about these things, and I think you should check out Gamal Hennessy's Comics Publishing Institute because it seems like something that is a nice alignment to what we're doing here at Comic Book School, where we're helping you to level up on the craft and the business of making comics. Please give this video a like, subscribe, set the little alert thing, and please tell people about it and help them join the fun. So, as for this Tuesday and every Tuesday, my name is Buddy Scalera, and thank you so much for joining us on Comic Book School Live. And I guess we're done.